the sun has remained quite active over the last several days, and culminated early on March 15th with a large coronal mass ejection pointed almost directly at the Earth. And we saw during this period too a large increase in the proton flux of the sun. Now, in this video, I'm going to first show this SDO images, and then go to the SoHo images. We start here with Mars at 13 degrees of Aries, and Uranus approaching the square of Pluto. And here we also have Jupiter at 13 degrees of Leo. On the 10th, we have Mars at 120 degrees to Jupiter, and the Sun is at 105 degrees to Saturn. And we start the day with coronal mass ejections. Now, it continues on over the next few days, with the 14th being a fairly quiet day, and then it goes into the 15th. Early on the 15th, we see a large coronal mass ejection. As time went on, then we saw the conjunction of Mars and Uranus, and the square of Mars and Uranus. And on the 11th, we saw coronal mass ejections. Now, on the 12th, we again just see basically the same aspects, without a great deal of new interactions, but Uranus and Pluto are rapidly approaching the 90-degree angle. Although we do have, oh dear, I went back. When we look here, we will have the 15-degree angle here on the 12th to Neptune. And then finally we go up to the 15th. Early on the 15th, we have just before 2 o'clock universal time, a coronal mass ejection on the Sun. Now here at this point, Uranus is only 5 arcminutes from the 90-degree angle with Pluto. And other than that, we should see now over the next few days, because we're going to have the square here of Uranus and Pluto, continued activity. We also have here that Mercury had just passed the 45-degree angle with Mars when the eruption occurred on the Sun. And the Moon here was just past 75 degrees to the Sun. So we'll go on to the first video now here. Now here's the solar dynamics in composite view. Now here's the sunspot group at the start of this on the 13th, when it was pointing directly at the Earth. Now it's rotated around slightly. There we see the coronal mass ejection. And we'll watch it again. Activity is when it's pointing directly at the Earth, and now it's rotating slightly past early on the 15th, where we had the coronal mass ejection. Move on in on this a little bit. And that's coronal mass ejection there. And there's a smaller sunspot group here, and the coronal mass ejection occurs at the exact moment that it is pointed directly at the Earth, which is interesting in itself. Now we'll just take a quick look here at the actual sunspot groups. This is the one here that emitted the large coronal mass ejection, and this smaller group here was pointed directly at the Earth, and this is the position on the Sun of the various spots when the coronal mass ejection occurred. And you see the one directly in the center here, the smaller sunspot group. And then we have the larger one where the actual ejection occurred. Now, we'll notice too here, this is the proton flux on the Sun during this period. And see how it's picked up markedly over the previous period. And not very much change in the proton flux over the last several weeks, in fact. And here we have a real large bump up, just as Uranus is about to square Pluto. And you can see the flare activity. Now we see here the flare that occurred right at the same time as the coronal mass ejection, and then afterwards. And in the video that we just saw on SDO, that was quite apparent. Now we just take a look again at another view. This is in red of the coronal mass ejection. There it occurs there. And you can see, though, that the flaring had been going on for quite some time before the actual ejection occurred. And you can see that first there is just when it's pointing right at the Earth, and then it rotates around. And we have the ejection occurring. This is a smaller sunspot group over here. This is the larger one, where the ejection occurs. Now we'll just look at another wavelength on the SDO. And this is the large sunspot. There's the coronal mass ejection right there. There's the ejection. And right here, that's where it's pointed right at the Earth. And that's when the activity really starts to pick up, which culminates in the CME. Now here's the smaller group. You You can see there's actually a flow between the larger group and the smaller group, just at about the moment that it's pointed towards the Earth. Right here, let me see. And a small flare there. There's the CME. So just one more look at the other composite view here. Now we'll see the SDO view. There's on the 11th, the first CME, or the 10th, sorry. We're on the 11th now. And there's another CME. And then another one. And another one on the lower right. And another one. And another one. And the 12th. It's a little calmer. And we see increased activity there on the 13th. And it's fairly calm on the 14th here, but as we move into the 15th, you'll see the activity will start to increase late in the day on the 14th. There it starts on the lower right. And coming up, there's the CME, just before 2 o'clock. And that is the end of the sequence, and we start again.